June 11th, 2010, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in windy Warwick, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For June 11th, 2010, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Supreme Court rules you must speak up to be silent. BP stock beyond worthless. Petroleum expert Alec Baldwin suggests letting BP die. Steve Jobs has his Win 98 moment. Christina Aguilera's light up crotch. Hey gang, it's time for celebrity birthdays once again. I got my cake hat on, let's rock! For Saturday the 5th, Pancho Villa, dead, and Bill Moyers. For Sunday the 6th, Dave Scott and Gary U.S. Bonds. For Monday the 7th, Jessica Tandy, dead, and Dean Martin, dead. For Tuesday the 8th, Nancy Sinatra and Tim Berners-Lee. For Wednesday the 9th, Les Paul, dead, and Michael J. Fox. For Thursday the 10th, Howlin' Wolf, dead, and Julie Garland, dead. For Friday the 11th, Richard Strauss, dead, and Gene Wilder. That's celebrity birthdays. I'm Paul Torville, and I'm done! We'll have stories in detail right after this.
Most people are really creeped out by me. Not you.
No! Who's creeped out by you? That's ridiculous. I wanna know who that is.
The neighbors to the right, the neighbors to the left, and everyone else.
That just doesn't seem right. You're such a nice guy.
I'm not a guy.
House Minority Leader John Boehner, who asks that we pronounce his name in a manner contrary to the way it's spelled, Mr. Boehner, has now gotten on Sir Paul McCartney's back about a remark the knighted musician made at a White House concert, during which Sir Paul was presented with the Gershwin Prize for Popular Song. McCartney said, quote, "After the last 8 years, it's great to have a president who knows what a library is," end quote. Connie Hare, reporting for Human Events, a conservative blog site, asks, "When did decorum go out of style?" Really? It might have been when then Vice President Richard B. Cheney told sitting U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy to "f*** yourself" on the floor of the U.S. Senate. No? Well, maybe it was when then President George W. Bush called a New York Times reporter a major league No? Maybe it was the hours and hours of taped conversation from the Nixon administration in which the president can be heard ranting against and other minorities he regarded poorly. In her sycophantic defense of Bush, as she buttoned up her piece, she stated that Bush holds an MBA from Harvard and is married to a librarian. Wow. There's some credentials. Congressman Boehner said, quote, "I hope he'll apologize to the American people for his conduct which demeaned him, the White House, and President Obama," end quote. The American people are still waiting for an apology for the Bush presidency itself. Oh, and as far as I can tell, the only person demeaned by Sir Paul's remarks was W. British Petroleum. In a recent opinion piece for the New York Times blog, Princeton bioethics professor Peter Singer discusses the mindset of those who choose not to reproduce, and whether we all should take to heart questions like, would the world be better off without us? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
Absolutely not. God put us here to be fruitful and multiply, but only in a one-man, one-woman marriage until death do you part. Any other opinion is heretical and invites being stoned to death, even though God commanded that thou shalt not kill. Amen. Woo! Unfortunately, the movie Idiocracy seems to be the most realistic portent of the future of humanity. Individual rights depend on rational individuals policing themselves. Competitive breeders like the Goslings, the Duggars, and the Octomom obviously lack the restraint, intellect, and broader worldview necessary to do their part to contain runaway population growth, and pass those shortcomings on to their bounteous progeny both biologically and culturally. Ironically, that is evolution in action.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. And now, here's Moose Weintraub with the Sports Half Minute.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute. It's a whole half minute of sports. 30 seconds of sports. Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Here's your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. If you already own a bike and a helmet, for another $50, you could be playing bicycle polo.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. Apple has done it again. What is it that they've done? They've managed to release a new version of a product well before the previous generation has had a chance to wear out, break, or even accumulate any noticeable scratches. The iPhone 4, announced this week, is the 4th iPhone version in 3 years. Apple, which makes its bread and butter pushing shiny novelty through stores, may not be letting the shine wear off sufficiently, and may be alienating otherwise loyal fanboys. For example, now that the new hardware and OS are available, who's going to buy an iPod Touch with the old hardware and OS now? I'm certainly not. We'll have your exclusive past-cast weather and the final news roundup right after this.
You'll notice that when you watch NewsUndies, I'm always wearing a shirt from the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave. Well, now you can too. You can help support NewsUndies by going to the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave and getting some kitsch.
And now, here's your exclusive past-cast weather for the week ending Friday, June 11th, 2010.
The Heartland had thunderstorms. Texas and Oklahoma saw cool thunderstorms in the north and warm sun to the south. No one saw it coming. In the High Plains region, it was warm with scattered thunderstorms.
And that's your exclusive past-cast weather. Helen Thomas. Sometimes people sneak things into jail in their bums. It's true. If you were being sent up the river for 3 days, what would you risk additional jail time to bring with you? In your bum. Well, if you were a smoker, you might bring tobacco. Oh, and rolling papers. And you'd probably want a lighter with that. How about a bottle of tattoo ink and 8, count them, 8 tattooing needles in your bum. And an unspecified amount of suspected marijuana. For 3 days in the clink. Gavin Stanger, 24, of East Wenatchee, Washington, apparently couldn't last 3 days without a smoke, or a tattoo, or a bong hit. No word yet on how much more jail time Stanger bought for himself with his portable hole gag. Finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Chuck Schumer of New York are leading the charge to require registering your name and address before you can purchase a prepaid cell phone. There is apparently some bipartisan support for the bill, primarily on the grounds of pee-pee pants terrorism and drug fears. Remember the Patriot Act? Send in the clone! Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. Remember, NewsUndies is a weekly show, and we'll be back on Friday, June 18th with fresh undies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, email your story tips to undies@newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be clinging to a double standard that allows me to simultaneously be horrified at the Gaza flotilla disaster and aghast at Helen Thomas's remark on Palestine. But probably not. It's not the way I roll. This is a cool mug. You should have a mug like this. You should should.